We love horror movies from the 70s and 80s, and we watch them for 2 days straight, and then we go write a book. Now we're looking back at every title, one at a time, in this podcast that we put out monthly. Once we've had an episode for every movie, it's time to meet up for another Shock Marathon. Hello, and welcome to the inaugural edition of the Shock Marathon podcast. I'm Matt Farley, here with Tom Scalzo.
Hello.
And Charlie Roxburgh.
Hi.
Today we will be discussing The Devil Master, a.k.a. Demon Lover, and before we even get any deeper, Charlie, of the two titles, what do you prefer?
Devil Master.
Tom?
Oh, yeah. No question.
No question. It seems that Demon Lover is the more common title, but
It doesn't really make sense. No one is a demon lover.
You're absolutely right. There's no love in the whole movie.
No.
All right, let's just... Charlie, what do you got to say about it?
I think for us, the title that we watch the movie under is what we like forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very much in favor of the random movie that happened to be in the shelves in Hooksett, New Hampshire, I believe, is where we rented it, right? Charlie?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, anywho, let's just get started. We're not going to waste any time. The Devil Master opens up. It's a night scene with some really horrible sound, a lot of echo and reverb. It's tough on the ears. The video is mostly blue because it's supposed to be nighttime. And we cut between Pamela, this girl who's sleeping and then is attacked by a demon out in the woods. We cut between that and scenes of Laval Blessing, who we'll meet later, chanting and doing all his devil stuff. And it's a bit of a prolonged scene. It's tough to take, but Pamela dies. And Charlie, what do you think of that scene?
I think that it's confusing. I think they moved it. I think it has been moved to the front of the movie just to have some killing and violence, and that's what I think about it.
I agree entirely. So that's what happens at the beginning. It's a tough start, but luckily the movie redeems itself almost immediately. Well, yeah, immediately after Pamela dies, because we're at the party, and the party scene, potentially the best scene in the whole movie, and incredibly memorable. It starts with Damien, who is one of my favorite, besides Laval, of course. Damien's my favorite character. He's very righteous and earnest. He arrives, and we get some great witty banter between the partygoers. And Damien says, among other things, he says, "I'd like to see Paul stand outside and pretend to be a scarecrow, but I'll settle for a drink." I think that's indicative of what they think is witty writing. Tom, do you agree?
Oh, yeah. There's many moments like that where it definitely somebody sat down and wrote it and thought this is going to get people rolling on the floor. But what they fail to realize is just the whole scene of him coming in and just demanding a drink and not really saying hello to anybody. Just that's even more funny than anything that he actually says.
Yeah, it's not natural and it's not funny either. So it's that weird middle ground. Charlie?
But that might be common practice at an occult meeting. We don't know.
Good point. Very good point. So now a lot of dancing and a lot of drinking at the party. And then we cut upstairs where Laval's in the tent with Pamela, who just died in the opening scene, as we mentioned. And the only explanation is, as Charlie said, that they wanted a little bit of death early on in the movie, so they just took a scene that was, say, the third scene, and instead made it the first, and never tried to explain it. And Laval's trying to convince her to channel energy with him, and she's not into it. And he says, among other things, "You're so wrapped up in chains, you'll never be free." Laval is quite whiny, wouldn't you say, Tom?
Oh man, he's a huge baby. And literally, he's monstrous.
Yeah, he's a giant man. So Pamela can't take what's going on in the tent. She breaks down and is hysterical down at the party, totally killing the vibe of the party. Damien, who, like I said, is the champion of the underprivileged. He wants to defend her, and so he gets in a big argument with Laval. Right before the argument, maybe, Laval's about ready to start the meeting, and he says to Charlie, "Charlie, get the candles out of the trunk where we keep the magic paraphernalia." And he says it much better than I just did. He has a great delivery with that line. And Charlie, who's kind of just the yes man, is like, "Anything you say, Laval." And he's a pretty annoying character, that Charlie. The two of them together, because Charlie's like 5'2", and Laval's like 6'8". Am I right, Tom?
It might be a little closer than that, but it definitely feels like that.
And Laval demands the women disrobe, and Damien steps in. Everyone's getting mad. There's a little fight. There's one line that doesn't even make sense, but one of the partygoers says, "I get it, Laval's pissed, and we're not going to play bingo." I don't know what that meant. It was an attempt at humor again. Do you remember that one, Charlie?
I do, but yeah, it's another example of something that we just don't understand.
As the party is dispersing, one of the partygoers says, "How can we have fun if we don't get drunk and do something scary?" Which makes it's interesting because the movie is written by people who seem to like the black magic, and yet they write a story in which everyone kind of disses black magic throughout the movie. Correct, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the only person that really takes it seriously is Laval, and I mean, maybe they didn't intend him to come off as such a moron, but I mean, he's definitely not painted as a character that you respect.
Yeah, you definitely support the rest of the gang more than you do Laval, and it surprises me because the guy who plays Laval wrote it, and the makers of the movie seem like they would be more pro Laval than the movie turns out to be.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so then the party breaks up. Laval's got some naked girl in a satanic circle, and lots of reverb, and he's talking with the devil. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but I think it's just for the sake of showing satanic stuff happening. So day 2, there's a couple of guys out in the woods. They're going to shoot some rats, and one of them happens upon the body of Pamela, and he states, "It's a dead body, Pete. Just like on TV." And at that moment, the next scene, we're introduced to the great. I guess there's 3 great characters in this movie. It would, in my book, it's Damien, it's Laval, and Detective Brazetta. Charlie, what do you think of the great detective?
He really hams it up, which I appreciate. This movie needs that because a lot of the other characters are kind of forgettable. So I enjoy him, and he's terrible, but yeah, I like him, and he's a great nemesis for Laval.
So the first step of the process of the investigation is to interview a girl named Elaine at the bakery, and it's written that she's supposed to be really opposed, like she wants to protect the coven in the script, but it comes across as a pretty good-natured woman trying to sound angry and uncooperative with a cop. And Brazetta is so frustrated with his inability to make any progress in the interrogation. Tom, what does he do?
He flicks a rubber band at her back. And it's the way the scene is staged too. It's like he's like prepping to shoot the rubber band like as he's talking to her. So it's like this was his plan coming in. This is going to happen no matter what. It makes no sense that this would be such a key part of his investigation, but it's magic.
Yeah, that's a great moment, and I remember we were cheering for it when it happened, and we continue to talk about it to this day, so it's pretty awesome. So then Elaine gets a little concerned because the cops are investigating, so she calls her friend and has a quick phone call, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but when the phone call ends, it stays on the girl she was talking to, and she sort of hangs up the phone and then sort of dials a couple numbers and then thinks about it for a second and then hangs up the phone. And it's amazing that they left that in. Do either one of you remember that?
I don't remember that part.
Okay, I was studying very closely. Sorry. So then they go... Tom, go.
No, that's impressive detail work.
Thank you. They go driving around town talking about, oh man, this is intense stuff. One of them states, death is a really, really heavy thing. It's spoken by one of the girls in the car. And Laval uses his satanic powers to make them run out of gas, and then make one of them run over the other, and then make the other one, I think, strangle the other. But basically, they kill each other. And then poor Brazetta's now got 3 dead girls on his hand. It's getting really out of hand here. So we have some discussions between Brazetta and his second detective in charge, and that's a really more painful attempts at humor, where the second in command comments on the high quality of the photos of the dead girls, and then Brazetta is saying, "How can you say that? The girls have died," and it's pretty rough. Then Damien and Alex discuss the situation out in the woods. Damien, again, is very angry about everything that's happening. He's the moral compass of the movie, I would say.
Unquestioned.
So then Brazetta, what's he going to do next? He's going to join his wife at a paranormal group. Before the group starts, he's offered a Bloody Mary, and he quips, I've already had to deal with a bloody Pamela and a bloody Elaine, and whatever the other one was, and everyone's a little unhappy with his bad taste.
Oh,
It's brutal.
wrong.
Yeah, it really is brutal. Brazetta has no respect for the occult people. He meets with Professor Peckinpah, who, among other things, states, the practitioners of evil aren't exactly listed in the yellow pages, which is another great line.
I kind of like that guy. He could have done more. He had a nice presence.
Yeah, I agree. He had an air of intelligence.
Yeah.
So then Damien, it's nice. They establish that the Brazetta tells his second in command, if anyone needs to reach me, tell them I'm going to Peckinpah's house. And then it works out that in the script, Damien needed to reach him and called him at Peckinpah's house. Wouldn't give his name, but says, look, you want to go to a castle in the woods and find Laval Blessing, leading up to the great showdown at the castle. Laval lives in this castle. He's out there throwing knives against into like a bullseye thing, and there's a little back and forth outside, and finally Laval states, if there's no hassle, let's go inside the castle. Now tell me, Tom, and Tom first, I feel that the outside of the castle looks very much like a castle. The inside of the castle looks like the inside of a different house. Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, there's no... It's especially where they have the interview. It just feels like a really cramped apartment.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, same for me.
So I think they had access to the outside of a castle, but not necessarily the inside. Either that, or all the money spent on the castle was spent on the outside, and they just went real cheap. But inside the castle, the showdown continues. Laval states the TV is only here for casual weekend guests. Brazetta states that they think it was either an evil cult or an animal that killed these girls, to which Laval states, that's very strange. I mean, there aren't any zoos or circuses or prisons where wild animals would be getting loose around here. This isn't Africa. Charlie.
I think you were too smooth in your reenactment of his. You need to be more struggling to remember the lines, and that'll convey Laval's acting there.
Yeah, you got to watch it. There's no way you can recreate how wonderfully it happens in our movies as well. You can see me trying to remember my lines in many of our movies, and that's exactly what Laval's doing there. Tom?
It's like he started down this road of just a muddled thought, and he just kept going and tried to tie it up somehow. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, I love the whole keep going with it no matter how badly this is going. Charlie?
Just that scene with those two guys is like those are two titans, and that's wonderful scene. The movie picks up a lot of energy right there.
Yes, and it quickly loses it after. But yeah,
Yep.
So what we got here, key scenes, opening party scene, spectacular. And then the elastic rubber band scene, wonderful. head-to-head at the castle, fantastic. We're at the 43-minute point, and then there's 6 minutes of filler. I took notes. At the 43-minute point, we get 3 minutes and 40 seconds of karate practice, and it's just Laval practicing karate with his sensei, and all it comes down to is they needed to fill the movie up, and they said, well, let's go to I've got karate class in an hour, just bring the camera and film it, we'll drop it in there. And as if that wasn't enough, from the 45-40 point to the 49-minute mark, it's a barroom scene, people just hanging out eating, and then there's some I don't even know what causes the fight, but it ends up with a big brawl. Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, well, a guy says, hey, are you the guy Laval who messes around with magic? And he says something like, you've been, making eyes at my woman. And then Laval shoves the dude's face in some popcorn.
That's right.
And I don't know if it's something to be proud of, but I recognize Donald Jackson in a cameo in the bar scene.
That is definitely something to be proud of.
Okay, good. So the 6 minutes of filler finish with the barroom brawl ending. The karate class and the brawl led nowhere, Tom.
I just wanted to, before we get away from the karate class, that during the majority of that karate class scene, Laval is just getting the crap beat out of him, too. I don't know why. It doesn't add anything to his character, it just detracts from any sort of sense of power he had.
Yes, that's a very, very good point, and it's in keeping with the way that everyone disrespects him at the party scene.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they were going for, or did they want Laval to do better, and he just, the actor just kept getting beaten and they couldn't film it again? I don't know. Charlie.
In order to right things with the world, that the bar fight shows Laval as an unbeatable force. So he gets beaten up like crazy, then he takes out a bar room full of guys, and it's like, okay, his ego was soothed.
Oh, and the music for both scenes is, again, just 1970s in every way. All right, so then we meet up with some of the coven members, and they're filling up their their car with gas in a pretty extended scene. Lots of improvised, it was sounding like improvised dialogue, bad humor, and they're all talking about how they want to get out of the coven. And a weird thing, I don't know if you noticed this, guys, but the camera follows. First, they say to the gas attendant, "We'll be back with our money," and drive off. And the camera sees them driving off. Then it pans back to the gas tanks, and in between them is a big picture of the Last Supper. Did anyone notice this?
Yeah, I did notice that.
What is that?
It's called symbolism.
I think now, are we meant to believe that this is a religious gas station, or is that there? Did the devil put that there, or what, Tom?
I don't think it was there before. I don't think it's actually there during the whole scene. So it must be something that's meant to symbolize something. But
that's about as far as you can go with it.
Well, they were on their way to die, right?
Okay, so that was the last fill-up.
That was their last.
That's deep.
They might have had some beef jerky off camera as the last supper that we didn't see. Some guy ran in for a snack.
Yeah, I definitely didn't notice that one the first 2 or 3 viewings. It was only this time around that I had to go back. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
But I mean, that just smells of an idea that someone just happened to have it in the trunk of their car and let's put this up and it'll symbolize stuff. So then what happens? Oh, then the girls from the coven are hanging out waiting for the guys, because that's where the guys were headed. What to do while you're waiting? There's really no other option than a whipped cream battle. And the girls fight each other with whipped cream, really not entertaining and doesn't go anywhere. And after the whipped cream battle, Laval conjures up the devil who kills all 3 girls. Now, do you think, is this the devil, or is it a demon? What do you think, Tom?
I think we're supposed to think it's the devil.
Okay. And Laval controls him, correct?
I've been, thinking about that since I finished watching it again. I think that's supposed to be the idea, that Laval is controlling the devil, and the devil hates him because of it. But it's like he can't do anything about it somehow.
What a great story. I love it. So the girls all die. The guys show up, see all the dead girls. I could be getting confused here. Like, it's the type of movie that you, as you're watching it, you forget what just happened, it seems. But then the second cop in command shows up, and it's a great moment when all the girls are dead except one in her last breath says, "Laval, I always knew it would end like this." It was, which is another kind of line that you would maybe come up with at age 13 making a movie with your friends, Brazetta's woken up by the news. He uses a couple of bad words on the phone when he hears about the 3 dead girls, and his wife gets very upset with him. The 4 guys go into the castle. All 4 walk by the camera, and then the last of the 4 guys stops, mugs for the camera, and says, "We've entered the gates of hell." Great moment. Then we cut to Damien hanging out in his house, loading his gun. Lots of stuff is happening, all the while loud, echoey, painful rock and roll music, I would say. Tom?
Yeah, it's a combination. It's like 3 or 4 layers of audio, and it like at times you can't even tell if someone is screaming or if it's part of the soundtrack. And it just makes you, after a couple minutes, it just makes you want to turn it off because you can't not only can you not tell what's happening, but it starts to make your head hurt.
Yeah, and as muddled and dirty as the audio is, the video is equal, I would say.
Yeah, certainly it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. All right. So then, what's going on? Damien's loading a gun. Charlie, what does he do? Charlie grabs a crossbow and wants the other 3 guys to leave because he knows this is bad news. And then he's like, "You must leave the castle now for your own good. Leave." And then he shoots one of them in the crotch. And did Laval make Charlie do that through his devil stuff, or was that Charlie doing it himself? Charlie, what do you think?
Through the devil stuff, I think. But I'm constantly confused throughout the movie why there needs to be like a physical demon creature that's doing stuff.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't Laval just control their minds and make them all kill themselves?
That's a very good point, because in many instances it's just mind control, but in a few others it's this big ape-like demon.
He's controlling the mind of the beast who's doing the killing, or the demon, versus just controlling the person.
All right, so then I guess they're all kind of killing each other. The curses. Oh, and then one guy stabs himself. Charlie's still alive. He bows down before Laval, maybe begs for his life. Damien shows up, the moral compass of the movie. He's a great guy. He says, "To the devil, Laval," and then before he can shoot, the devil gets him. But I don't even know if Damien survives or not. I'm so confused. Brazetta shows up. Devil ends up killing Laval. And then Brazetta kills the devil. And then it ends. Am I right? Is that right, Tom?
That's right.
That's a good day of work for a policeman. Like you can go home and say, "Hey, I earned my salary today."
I killed the devil.
But he's ruined. He's ruined.
Oh.
His mind is gone.
Does it show that he's ruined, or you're just extrapolating that, Tom?
Because it ends with him sitting there and continuing to try and fire shots at an empty wall where the devil used to be. I think he's just gone.
It's like Tommy Lee Jones at the end of No Country for Old Men, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that's...
The Coens watched this movie.
That is the scene-by-scene analysis of the movie. Now let's... step 2 of this podcast. I don't know if I told you, Tom, or not, but step 2... is a big picture assessment, kind of our overall reviews. And let me just start by saying it's kind of cool when you think of the plot. The plot is coven members get tired of their leader. Leader kills all of them using the devil. Devil then retaliates, kills the leader, and the super cop saves the day. That's the whole story. It's very just straightforward and no frills.
Yeah. Makes sense on paper, but what confuses me the more I've been thinking about it, which been thinking about it probably too much now, but it's like what is if Laval apparently has this power to make the devil do his bidding and or control people's minds and actions. So what is the point of this coven at all? Because it seems like he wanted them to be his conduits to power, but ultimately it seems like it was irrelevant and he could already do all this stuff.
I think it's timing. It just so happens that that coven meeting was the one where he had finally reached the point that he needed to control the devil, and he was happy to bring them all along with him, but they just happened to have enough of that. It's very bad timing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
The problem with the movie being that thin plot-wise is that it, the version I saw I think was only 71 minutes, and it could have been 40. So I mean that a lot of padding, but the padding is some of the most memorable stuff. I mean the karate scene is slightly better quite a bit better in theory than it is in practice, but I'm glad it's there. And the rubber band is good. And it's just kind of neat that Brazetta lives, and it's really his story, Charlie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's someone that he has a family. He's supposed to be kind of like a normal guy, and I guess the guy that you identify with. But
and his wife hates bad language, which I think is a nice little touch right there too.
Yeah, and she's totally unconcerned if he's like running out in the middle of the night. She's like, "Whatever, I'm going back to."
Yeah, don't wake anybody up. You shadow the devil.
Shut out the lights and quit bugging me.
She's off before you come back in.
Yeah. And then like I said, also it's incredibly 1970s. It's 1970s in every way. Charlie, in your review in the book, which I reread, you said that if you want to know what the 70s were like, that's it right there. Just hit play.
Right. I think that those guys all secretly wanted to be like rock stars too. Like they wanted to be in Led Zeppelin. They wanted to be someone like that. I felt that especially when they were calling Damien Sir Damien. It felt like they probably heard that, famous rock stars get knighted or something, and they wanted that. They had the outfits to match too.
Yeah, I mean, they all love Zeppelin and even more Black Sabbath and whatnot. You get that
Black
feeling.
Sabbath.
Yeah. Ted Nugent. So, I mean, it's a great movie. I highly recommend it to just about everybody. I don't have any scale of stars or anything, but I mean, it's definitely, when I'm talking to horror movie people, this is early on in my list of movies to recommend to them. Tom, you?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, there's a lot of unpleasantness that you have to endure, but just to give you a sense of the kind of films that are out there that are made by people that are just, desperate to create something, and they love movies, but they don't really know what they're doing. And like this is the kind of movie that most average moviegoers have no clue that something like this could possibly exist.
Right.
So it's good to show them, like, look at this scene. This guy's at his karate practice, and it's in the final movie. It's almost, it's not like you're gonna sit down and be happy for 70 minutes, but you have to experience it.
Yeah, you're gonna remember it a lot more than the fifth sequel of any big franchise, Charlie.
I was just gonna say it gives good flavor for its region too. Like if you want to feel like what the woods are like Michigan, I think is where it is. It just has that feel of its area that it was shot that goes away and you don't get in some Hollywood movies.
Yeah, the whole movie is a time capsule of time and place, and it's fascinating. In this movie, we'll move on to part 3. Yeah, the history of the movie, and unlike most shock movies, this one happened to have a documentary made about it while it was happening, and it's probably the only one of the movies that we've ever watched. And it's a movie called Demon Lover Diary, and it's as muddy and crazy and hard to take as the movie itself is. And the general consensus from what I've read is that it's about three smart filmmakers, two filmmakers and a documentarian who have to deal with a bunch of idiots. But I watch it and I actually side more with Donald Jackson and Jerry Younkins than I do with the snotty filmmaking people. Tom, what about you?
Yeah, you definitely get that. Watching the actual film, you think Laval. That's Jerry Younkins, I believe, right?
Yes.
Laval.
Yeah.
You feel like he's kind of a pretentious guy who is overbearing and he thinks he's better than everybody. And he probably is a little bit like that. But watching the documentary, you actually feel like he is at least trying to create something, and he's getting frustrated that not everyone's on board, and he's not quite as obnoxious as you would imagine he would be.
Yeah, I mean, they bit off more than they could chew when they made the movie, no question there. And they were over their heads, but they weren't. Exactly like you said, they were honestly trying to create something, while the documentarian was merely just mocking them and feeling superior. Charlie?
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't get through it just because I felt that way so much that I haven't seen it all. I have to rely on your take on it. But Christmas Robbins is Laval. That's one reason I was kind of just going to say. Younkins is just the producer guy.
No, same guy, two names.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
His birth name, I'm pretty sure, is Jerry Younkins, and his screen name is Christmas Robbins, and his character name is Laval Blessing.
Oh, okay. So is there a producer other than?
Yeah, Donald Jackson.
He's the guy that you see walking around in the documentary, who's kind of not in the movie much, except for that cameo.
Right. He's the guy whose mom's house the documentarians stay out and sleep in the movie, and he comes across as a little weird, on edge. But I mean, he hired these people. Well, these people agreed to shoot the movie for him. They showed up late with the documentarian who's walking around filming everything he does, and I don't blame him for being a little uncomfortable and not friendly.
Wow, it's a good life when you change your name to Christmas Robbins.
Yes,
that's pretty nice. Like, he was just thinking, I gotta go for something for my screen name from the one movie I'm gonna be in. Thinking Christmas is my new first name.
If one of you wants to look that up, it's probably worth.
I just did.
Okay, am I right?
You're right. And something else that's interesting that's worth noting is that the guy who does that professor of the occult that they talk to.
Peckinpah.
Yeah, Peckinpah. He's Leatherface.
Oh yeah, they got a couple of the cameos. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I forgot to mention that earlier.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah. The documentary ends supposedly with they're at Ted Nugent's house with looking at guns to use in the movie, and then there's a jump cut to the documentarians running to the car, and the documentarian girl saying, I heard gunshots, and it almost sounds as if that was dubbed over later, and I don't even believe. I feel like that was enhanced. If they felt scared, they were amping up their fear fivefold just for the sake of the documentary. Tom, do you get that?
Yeah, that's a little hazier in my memory, but I get that. I remember that feeling. It didn't feel that authentic.
So I wrote down my thoughts on that movie, and generally the lesson of that movie for people making a low budget movie is, it doesn't cost to be humble, polite, and organized, which they really weren't. So they obviously don't come across as easy to work with. They're overly ambitious, too many actors, too many special effects. Could have been more pragmatic in what the story was going to be ahead of time, so that they didn't get into as many issues as they did. But nevertheless, the makers of the documentary, they come across as bratty and superior, entitled, not helpful.
Right.
They don't need to work on a movie if they don't really want to. They're dishonest about their intentions in front of the camera and on narration. They act distraught and flabbergasted, but I suspect that they were playing up for the movie, like I said. So, but I mean, it's priceless as a way to act, because every time part of the joy of these movies is saying, I wonder what it was like behind the scenes, and this is one of the few where you actually see it.
Right, it's really nice to be able to see that, because you definitely feel like, I don't know, I get the feeling rewatching the actual movie that there's some scenes that actually come together kind of nicely, and that you feel like it must have just been chaos on these sets, like trying to figure out what to do. And there's a few moments of magic, I guess, that happen every once in a while. But
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to make a movie, and it was even harder in 1975, I would think. And they did it. They made a movie. So I have utmost respect for all those guys and the documentarians. It just bothers me that any article I've read about Demon Lover Diary portrays it as the intelligent documentarians dealing with the idiot filmmakers, and it's such an easy way to look at it, and it's wrong, and the documentary is just so biased.
Yeah, it doesn't add anything really to the world of cinema other than giving us a glimpse of what actually goes on in making a movie like this.
Yeah, and the style of documentaries at that time were even also annoying because just the narration felt like a PBS narration from 1977, and I don't know. Anyway, that's Demon Lover Diary. It's definitely interesting and fascinating, but I side with the makers of Devil Master. Final bit is Shock Memories, Tom, where we compare the most recent viewing of this movie to the time that we watched it during a Shock Marathon. And I'll start by just saying I only remembered 4 scenes: the party, the karate, the barroom brawl, and the elastic. And I was surprised by how much more there was in there. All the rest is filler, but I didn't remember any of it. Tom, do you have any Shock memories?
Yeah, I didn't remember so much of the screaming and the horrible audio. It felt like so much of this movie was screaming at you, and in my memory it was a lot more lighthearted. But in rewatching it, it was definitely darker and a little more gruesome and just really loud. That's what I took away from it.
Charlie, do you have any Shock memories?
Yeah, I think that the funny lines, the funny dialogue is what stuck with me. I didn't forget that, but I forgot a lot of the plot and a lot of the things like, oh, why are they here now? And some of the filler scenes I sort of forgot. But Laval's great lines and Frazetta's great lines, I remembered all of, like 5 or 7 lines from this movie, having watched it once.
Yeah, and Laval is so much larger than life. There's plenty of other movies you watch and it's over and you don't remember these characters, but I mean this guy, he's big, he's got hair that goes halfway down his body. The way he delivers lines is extraordinary. It can't be recreated by anyone, and he's very whiny, which is delightful and hilarious, and he makes the movie ultimately, I would say.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is an unforgettable movie. I mean, it's still part of our lives. That's the key aspect of the key takeaway of any of these movies is do you think of Laval and or some of these lines in your day-to-day life? And the answer is yes.
Yes. All right, well, we could talk for another 2 hours about it, but I think we covered it quite well. This has been the inaugural episode of Shock Marathons podcast. Join us next month. We're going to be doing an episode about the Zero Boys for Tom Scalzo and Charlie Roxburgh. I am Matt Farley saying thanks for listening. Goodbye.